All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the next item is in quite a different lane than the ILC update, and that is an update related to comprehensive redistricting. So Mr. Sorensen is going to come forth and let us know where we are in that process and offer an opportunity for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Cashwell. The full committee met on February 19th at Jackson Davis Elementary School to prepare for the upcoming public information sessions. The committee will be providing two options, both March 4th at Wilder Middle School and March 5th at Hermitage High School. And both meetings will begin with a presentation similar to the format we had last time, a presentation at 6:30, followed by a gallery walk of the maps with the committee members around the maps to answer specific questions from the public. The next committee meeting will be a full committee meeting. This is a change to the calendar, so we are having a full committee meeting on March 18th. Our website has been updated to reflect that. And that meeting will be at Henrico High School and will start at 5:30. So that's an update of the last meeting and the meetings coming up. And of course, I'll be glad to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sorensen. I'm going to start to my right. Ms. Kinsella, do you have any questions for Mr. Sorensen?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Ogburn?
Oh, I have comments.
Well, that's the same thing.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Question. I apologize. Yes, ma'am. I apologize.
Firstly, I wanted to once again thank the committee and staff for the diligence and the hard work thus far in the process. I believe the redistricting committee was given a directive by the board to independently create a comprehensive redistricting plan. I think it's, these are my opinions. I think it's counterproductive and premature to request changes to the committee's work before they've presented their final plans to us. That said, I continue to carefully follow the committee's work, as well as all of the feedback I receive daily wherever I am, whether it's on my phone, via email, at the grocery store, in my schools, with my principals, with teachers, community members. No school district has suffered more from overcapacity and overcrowding in the past 8 years than the Brooklyn district. I believe the committee has identified this as a current and future problem. Thus, to this point, its draft realignment plans are meant to correct that, especially at our secondary schools in Brooklyn, like Hungry Creek and Glen Ellen High School. I believe in the committee's work and will continue to follow the process closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsella. Ms. Ogburn.
Thank you. I, too, want to thank the committee, but also, Chris, you and your staff, and Mr. Jinks, and all the other people, and Justin Briggs, who are going to every meeting, being there, doing the work is just a gargantuan task. But as I said last time, I think our purpose at this point is to be certain that committees hear what our communities are saying, what they're saying to us. And Christy's right, you can't go anywhere. I was at my husband's uncle's 94th birthday party at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. We're all, and this woman, who I don't even still know her name, came up to me and said, "Can I talk to you about redistricting?" So, you know, you get it everywhere you go. That's the nature of the beast. But I think that we're getting through emails, through websites, whether it be in person, whatever. But the main thing I get asked all the time is, what do you think is the most important thing to consider at this point? And what do you think the committee is looking at? And we all know that when you have 69 different people on the committee, you have all of us, we all have a different point of view. We probably have a different perspective. But what's bubbling up the most in my community, and what I am hearing from the most, and the feedback I would give to the committee as to what the people in the three-child district care about the most, is keeping communities intact. Letting kids go to the schools that are the closest to them. And I know that Mrs. Shea has brought this up before. There's one instance in her district where kids go past one school to get another school. And I'm hoping things like that are fixed in this redistricting process, that where they live is of paramount importance. It is that sense of community. It is keeping communities together. Healthy feeder patterns, walkability, things like that are so important, I think, to everyone. But it's what I'm hearing the most from my community, and it's that overall, preserving the overall sense of community is so important to the folks that I'm hearing from. But also, and kind of lastly, I'll sum up, my constituents are hoping that the committee is using the guidelines that we have as policy, but also our goals in place to guide the work that they do, that every move that they make, every child that they suggest moving to a new school would fit the policies we have in place. And basically like a little checklist. If I decide to move this neighborhood, does it meet the criteria that we've set forth? And then if it does, then my community and any community would be able to buy into it. It would make sense to them. The end result, I think, if we do that, if we really rely and have the committee rely on our goals, we will affect as few students as necessary. That seems to me to be an end result. And our facilities will be utilized and balanced, which is what we all want. It's our primary goal in doing this. So again, I appreciate the work the committee is doing, but also you and the rest of the staff. It's an incredible task. I know you cannot wait till it's over.
Thank you so much, Ms. Agwell. Ms. Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen, for your continued diligent work on this matter. As well, thank you to the committee. You know, the comments and the understanding that we have as a board are only able to come out of the hard work that the committee has done. The months of work the committee has done and continues to do has highlighted challenges that are able to be resolved with some straightforward moves and some that require continued consideration. Their work is what has laid the groundwork for the in-depth analysis each one of us have done for our individual districts. Without their hard work, we wouldn't be where we are. And so truly thank you to the committee for what they have done and what they continue to do. The responsibility for final map approval rests on this body. And so I would be remiss if I did not clearly articulate what I am looking for in maps for adoption. These items reflect the feedback from my constituents in the form of hundreds of emails, many phone calls, hours of sitting with community groups, as well as careful consideration of groups in my district that may not have anyone advocating for them. Like Ms. Ogburn said, the number one piece of feedback I hear is about community continuity and the K-12 ARC. While feeder patterns are not explicitly listed in the 4 guiding principles, they are an essential part of the community school concept, which is explicitly listed in the guiding principles. You know, in a perfect world, we could have 5 elementary schools that fed into 1 middle school that all fed into 1 high school, but the numbers don't work here. We've got more middle schools than we do high schools, and mathematically, that's just not going to happen. But I do think we can keep the majority of our elementary schools together. That splits in our elementary schools would be the exception and not the rule. I do think we can eliminate some instances of middle schools that break between 3 high schools. I also acknowledge that the composition of school matters. And so there has to be better solutions for a school like Tucker that's assembled from 5 feeder middle schools so that they at least have somewhere that a majority of the students come from. These parts of the continuity of community matter to my constituents and, from what I've heard, constituents across the county. This is how we build strong school community. Secondly, I appreciate the increased conversation about the poverty distribution in my district, particularly pertaining to Quioccasin Middle School. As I stated last time, this is one of the top equity issues for my district. I am confident that there are solutions that can keep elementary schools together as they matriculate and can distribute middle school poverty concentrations in my area. However, the solution cannot be moving all of the highest areas of poverty that are in Quioccasin out of Quioccasin and to Tuckahoe. That is not a solution. That is the same problem in a new location. And so I think we have to be mindful that our goal really is to try to create equity and level load it, not just to move the problem somewhere else. And lastly, so the committee's charged with making maps. right? As a school division, though, we need to consider some of the other pieces of redistricting beyond maps from a programmatic standpoint. And some of these won't be full conversations until we truly know the scope of what students and what areas are going to be impacted. I think it's wonderful that we are committed to allowing 5th, 8th, 11th, and 12th graders the option of grandfathering in. I have concerns about the 7th and 10th graders as well. And I realize that grandfathering those grades almost limits half of the effectiveness of redistricting. But I think we need to have a conversation about it when our maps get closer. Or perhaps we think of other out-of-the-box solutions and look at perhaps students that would move schools being able to start at their new school earlier. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not saying either one of those are the answer, but I'm saying we need to have these conversations once the maps get closer to lessen the impact on some of our families.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shea. Ms. Atkins.
So it's interesting when you're in the community, when you have the mom hat on, or if you have the school board hat on, or if you're the dad, at your child's game. I think that regardless of what hat you wear or where your heart is, let me be the first to say that all Henrico schools are good schools. Let us keep in mind that if your child ends up going to another school, Henrico schools may not be perfect, but you have hundreds of individuals working to make them perfect, and I just felt led to share that. So regardless of where your child ends up, know that Henrico County is a good place to be. So just needed to say that. Thank you so much to the staff, to the committee, and to the hundreds of parents out here that have a little fear right now, and you're right to have that. But I also want you to keep in mind that the charge was to allow a committee to figure this out. I don't feel comfortable giving guidance on what to do quite yet because there's so much information still to decipher, still to understand. I can share with you on behalf of my constituents. I could probably share comments that I received from other districts. But I think that the right thing to do right now is to make sure that we do understand that there's some foundational things that we need to be thinking about right now. And the first one for me is that all Henrico schools are great schools. The second one for me is to understand the safety of our children and what they are hearing and what they are seeing when there is ugliness, whether it's on social media or in person. I also think number 3 for me is when we are looking at redistricting, some of this, just as Marcy said, is a numbers thing. And so we really do have to make sure that while we have compassion and emotions, we want to stick to some facts. And we want to allow the people that we said and charge them to do the work to do just that without feeling some of this emotion and some of the volatile climate that I'm actually seeing right now. And I could echo everything my colleagues up here said, but the several things that I have not heard is just those reminders that we're talking about children. We have a ton of staff and teachers that are doing an excellent job. We have great schools. We will continue to work to improve them, to get them to where we all want them to be. So if your child does end up where you do not want them to be, I'll put on the hat of the mom and say, yeah, I would be upset, but I also am going to recognize that as long as my child is getting a stellar education, they're safe, and that I can see them progressing. Know that everyone up here wants the best for everyone's child. And redistricting is a process, the redistricting process is one that is complicated and complex, but May will come and June will arise, and we will have students walking across the stage to graduate. regardless of what high school they attend. So please keep that in mind as you listen to us up here. And I'm sitting here, and I don't mind the redistricting emails. That's why I'm sitting here, but I will share with you, when you send me an email, I will respond and tell you first and foremost, your child is in a good school regardless of where that line sits. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank everyone for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Atkins. Again, I echo the sentiments of my peers in regards to dedication, commitment, sacrifice, and service of your staff and the committee members, and we look forward to the progression, the next 2 dates, the 4th and 5th, as well as presentation at Henrico High. So, again, thanks.
Thank you all for your support, kind words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen.